Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Learn English with Podcast Conversation. How are you all doing? I hope you are having a fantastic day. Today, we have a super fun episode planned. I am going to talk about my favorite topic, stories. Who doesn't love a good story, right? Stories are a great way to learn English because they are interesting and full of new words and expressions. Are you ready to have some fun? Let's dive in. Let's start with a funny story from when I was a kid. I promise you'll laugh. When I was about 7 years old, my family decided to go camping. I was very excited because I had never been camping before. We packed our tent, sleeping bags, and lots of food. My dad said he knew a perfect spot in the forest. We drove for a couple of hours and finally arrived at the campsite. It was beautiful. Tall trees, a little river, and so much fresh air. Now, here comes the funny part. My dad started to set up the tent while my mom and I looked for sticks to make a fire. Everything was going well until we realized we forgot one important thing, the matches. How were we going to light the fire? My dad tried to make a fire by rubbing two sticks together, just like in the movies. Do you think it worked? No, it didn't. We ended up eating cold sandwiches and went to bed early because it was too dark to do anything else. The next morning, we woke up to find that our food had been eaten by animals during the night. We had left the food out, thinking it would be safe. My dad said it was probably raccoons. We had no breakfast and no way to cook anything. We were hungry and a little grumpy, but we decided to go for a hike anyway. Halfway through our hike, it started to rain. We got soaked. By the end of the trip, we were tired, wet, and hungry, but we couldn't stop laughing. It was such a funny adventure. Now, every time my family gets together, we talk about that crazy camping trip and laugh. It's one of our favorite memories. What about you? Have you ever had a funny adventure? Maybe you got lost somewhere or something unexpected happened. I'd love to hear your stories. Sharing stories is a great way to practice English. You get to use different words and expressions, and it's always fun to hear about other people's experiences. Speaking of unexpected things, let me tell you about another funny experience. This one happened when I was in college. I had a roommate named Sarah. Sarah loved to cook, and she was really good at it. One day, she decided to make a fancy dinner for our friends. She was making pasta, salad, and a chocolate cake. Everything was going great until she tried to make the cake. Sarah followed the recipe exactly, but she forgot to add one important ingredient, sugar. When we all took a bite of the cake, we made the funniest faces because it was so bitter. We all laughed so hard, and Sarah was so embarrassed. But you know what? We all learned something that day. We learned that even when things don't go as planned, you can still have a good time and make great memories. Have you ever tried to cook something and it didn't turn out right? Maybe you burned the food or forgot an ingredient like Sarah. Cooking can be tricky, but it's always a fun learning experience. And who knows, you might end up with a funny story to tell. Now, I have a little challenge for you. I want you to think of a funny story from your life. It can be something small or something big. Maybe it's a time when you slipped and fell in front of a lot of people, or when you said something silly by accident. Write down your story and try to tell it in English. It's okay if it's not perfect. The important thing is to practice and have fun with it. Learning English doesn't have to be boring. You can learn while laughing and having a good time. That's why I love telling funny stories. They make learning so much more enjoyable. Alright, let's switch gears a bit. How many of you like animals? I love animals. I have a little dog named Maximum. He's very cute and very naughty. Max loves to play, but he also loves to get into trouble. Let me tell you about one of the funniest things he did. One day, I was in the kitchen making dinner. Max was playing with his toy in the living room. I turned around for just a minute, and when I looked back, Max was gone. I called his name, but he didn't come. I started to worry. I looked everywhere under the table, behind the couch, even in the bathroom. He was nowhere to be found. Finally, I went into my bedroom, and there he was, sitting on my bed with my slipper in his mouth. He looked so proud of himself. I couldn't help but laugh. He had been hiding the whole time, waiting for me to find him. Max always makes me laugh, even when he's being naughty. Do you have a pet? What's the funniest thing your pet has ever done? Pets can be so silly sometimes. They have their own personalities and do the funniest things. Talking about pets is another great way to practice English. You can describe what they look like, what they like to do, and tell funny stories about them. Oh, here's another hilarious pet story for you. This one is about my friend Jenny's cat, Whiskers. Whiskers is a very curious cat. One day, Jenny bought a new robot vacuum cleaner. You know, those little round ones that move around the house on their own. Jenny turned it on, and Whiskers was fascinated. She watched it for a few minutes, and then decided to follow it around. But then, she decided to jump on top of it. So, there was Whiskers, sitting on the robot vacuum, going for a ride around the house. Jenny couldn't stop laughing, and she took a video of it. The video went viral on the internet because it was so funny. Whiskers looked like she was having the time of her life, riding around on the vacuum cleaner. Have you ever seen a funny video of an animal doing something silly? There are so many on the internet. Watching these videos can be a great way to learn English too. You can listen to how people describe what the animals are doing and learn new words and phrases. Alright, let's talk about travel. How many of you like to travel? Traveling is such a great way to learn about new cultures and practice English. I have a funny travel story to share with you. A few years ago, I went to Italy with my friends. We were in Rome, and we decided to visit the famous Trevi Fountain. It's a beautiful fountain where people throw coins and make a wish. We were taking pictures and having a great time. Suddenly, a man dressed as a Roman soldier approached us. He looked very serious and said something in Italian. We didn't understand, but he kept pointing at our cameras. We thought he was telling us we couldn't take pictures, so we put our cameras away. But then, he took out his own camera and wanted to take a picture with us. We laughed and took a photo with him. Later, we found out that he was a street performer who makes money by taking pictures with tourists. It was a funny and confusing moment, but it made our trip even more memorable. Have you ever had a funny or confusing experience while traveling? Maybe you didn't understand the language, or something unexpected happened. Traveling can be full of surprises, and it's a great way to learn new things and make unforgettable memories. Now, I want to share a funny story from my school days. When I was in high school, I was very shy. I didn't like to speak in front of people. But one day, my teacher asked me to give a presentation in front of the whole class. I was so nervous. I prepared my speech and practiced a lot at home. The day of the presentation, I stood in front of the class and started to speak. Everything was going well until I looked at my friend, Lisa. She was making funny faces at me to help me relax, but it made me laugh instead. I tried to keep talking, but I couldn't stop laughing. The whole class started laughing with me. It was embarrassing, but also very funny. After that, I wasn't so afraid of speaking in front of people because I realized that it's okay to make mistakes and laugh at yourself. Have you ever had to speak in front of a group of people? It can be scary, but it's also a great way to practice English. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just keep trying, and remember to have fun. Alright, I think it's time for a little quiz. Don't worry, it's just for fun. I'm going to ask you some questions about the stories I told today. Let's see how much you remember. What did my family forget to bring on our camping trip? Who ate our food during the night? What ingredient did Sarah forget to add to the cake? What is the name of my dog? What did Jenny's cat, Whiskers, ride around the house? Did you get all the answers? Great job! Quizzes like this are a fun way to test your memory and see how well you understood the stories. Let's move on to another topic. How many of you like to play sports? Playing sports is a great way to stay healthy and have fun. I have a funny sports story to share with you. When I was in middle school, I joined the soccer team. I wasn't very good at soccer, but I wanted to try. During our first game, I was so nervous. I ran around the field, trying to kick the ball, but I kept missing. Finally, I got the ball and started running towards the goal. I was so excited. I kicked the ball as hard as I could, and it went straight into the net. I scored a goal. But then, I realized something. Everyone was looking at me with surprised faces. I had kicked the ball into the wrong goal. I had scored a goal for the other team. I was so embarrassed, but my teammates were very kind. They laughed and told me it was okay. After that, I practiced a lot and got better at soccer. It was a funny and embarrassing moment, but it taught me not to give up. Have you ever played a sport and made a funny mistake? Maybe you fell down or did something silly by accident. Playing sports is a great way to learn new skills and have fun, even when things don't go as planned. Now, let's talk about hobbies. What do you like to do in your free time? Hobbies are a great way to relax and have fun. I have a funny hobby story to share with you. A few years ago, I decided to try painting. I bought some paints, brushes, and a canvas. I was very excited to start. I found a picture of a beautiful landscape and decided to paint it. I spent hours working on my painting. When I was finished, I looked at it and realized it didn't look anything like the picture. The trees were crooked, the sky was too dark, and the river looked more like a road. I showed my painting to my family, and they tried not to laugh. But I could see the smiles on their faces. I laughed too because it was a very funny painting. I didn't give up, though. I kept practicing, and now I'm much better at painting. It's a fun hobby that I really enjoy. Have you ever tried a new hobby and it didn't turn out the way you expected? Maybe you tried to bake a cake and it didn't rise, or you tried to play an instrument and it sounded funny. Trying new hobbies is a great way to learn new things and have fun, even when things don't go as planned. Alright, my friends, that's all for today's episode. I hope you had fun and learned something new. Remember, learning English can be fun and entertaining. You can tell stories, laugh, and make great memories while you learn. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to share your funny stories with me. You can write them down and practice telling them in English. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, keep smiling and keep learning. Bye for now.